Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think
Podcast, baby.
Enjoy the show. Let us do a little bit of testing 1, 2, 3.
This thing, son of
Dimitri. Testing 1, 2, 3. That sounds more like
Dracula.
the count 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's right.
How many crayons?
You have four primary colors.
I forgot about that voice.
Yeah, that's.
Oh man, that's a good one.
That
Okay.
just takes you back to your childhood. Was that Ernie? Yeah.
They're my favorite. Okay, so emotional.
Let's talk about
intelligence.
Grover. Welcome to the video of YouTube. Okay.
That just turned like dark and creepy. Like,
That's
I
Grover.
feel like one of the Muppets is now going to murder someone.
That's just a feeling.
Oh, it's just a feeling.
Except for the
More
person
than a
behind
feeling.
you
More
with the
than a
butcher knife.
feeling.
Oh my word. Just don't take your shirt off. I need my glasses to read.
Yes, you do.
Look at that. Wait, 65?
Would you like me to talk louder?
35.
Can you hear me?
What'd you say, Massa? Mister?
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Ready?
As ready as I'll probably be.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are, as always, excited to be here today with some fresh new content, a new episode. We are actually nearing episode 200.
For the layperson.
It's 200. That's
200.
like double 100. And we've been doing this, going at this, coming up on 3.5 years. This September will be 4 years that we've been running this podcast, and that's crazy.
So for all four of you, thank you so much for
Mom, Dad, appreciate it. No, we're coming up on the 200th episode, and we mentioned that because we've been saying the last couple of episodes, and I gotta, I guess, figure out when this is going to release, but I think this is probably still okay to say now, that we will be having a local event here in the Portland area, Portland, Oregon, where at a local brewery where we are going to be recording with our cameras, our mics, and probably a beer or two. But we will keep it. We will keep it.
Like he's telling me.
We will keep it clean.
It's like the side. We will, won't we?
It's going to happen.
It will be clean.
No doubt about it. But we will be recording, getting some input from people, answering some questions, talking to some of our favorite staff that work at the brewery that we have been going to for a long time, every Thursday. So anyway, if you're in the area, we'll be putting stuff up on our social media, so stay tuned for that. And just stay tuned in general for the 200th episode. If you have not, if you're not going to be live, or if you're not going to be here in Portland for that event, at least you can listen to the episode and just kind of hear what happens at that fantastic event.
You know what else that they could do that would make them feel like a participant?
You know, if you just show up and you don't really know much, it's like, oh, that's cool. But if you show up in a t-shirt
That's right.
or a hat or carrying your own mug,
Yeah.
That'd
You
be
could
cool.
feel very much a part of things, I think.
yeah, we would definitely sign that.
Oh,
for you.
yeah. That would
Sign
be
your shirt.
At some point,
Take
that'll be
pictures
worth
with you.
exactly what you purchased it for.
Right. Sell us for $20. Wow, I got my money back.
Shrinkthink.com/swag.
And so today we are going to be talking about building your emotional intelligence. I feel like this is a great topic that people out there, it's like a hot topic thing. I think a lot of people are talking about. You know, people are in relationships at their workplace, with their friends, family members, spouses, whatever, or just having conversations with, you know, with people that you run into. You know, you can just be talking to anybody, anywhere, and you, like the bartender or whatever, and you strike up a conversation. The whole idea of listening to people, being aware of like some social cues, or how to interact with people and be aware of like where people are at emotionally so that you can have a good positive conversation and connection. That's really kind of what emotional intelligence is all about. So we want to break that down into, I guess, 4 kind of main subject areas that I pulled this. I was working with a client on this and just decided to see what was out there. And I found this great article from Simply Psychology, I think is what it is. I'll put it in our show notes. That kind of outlines 4 areas of emotional intelligence that we'll break down and talk through so that we can help you to develop this as a listener.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this is, so a lot of us know what IQ is. EQ is probably, if you're a listener of the show, you probably know what EQ is to some extent because that's your interest level. But just to go bigger picture, IQ is intelligence quotient, right? So that's probably the most familiar worldwide when it comes to looking at some kind of quotient that tells something about how well you do something cognitively, something in your brain, basically. Mm-hmm. And the thing about IQ, though, is that you could have an IQ that's, genius is 140 on average. You could have that.
Yeah, about 140. 140 is about the average right there. Gotta go to Kmart.
Oh my goodness gracious. So you can have a high IQ as a point, but you could be a turd. Like you could be just a bad person.
Yeah. Or kind of like what I was, embodying here. You can be a little bit abstract and be completely aware of like these social emotional cues.
Right. And not
brilliant.
Not that neurodivergence is like, antithetical to any of that about good humanity or whatever.
Right.
But the idea is that it doesn't really say anything about how you process emotion. And like what we have learned too about IQ as an example is you can get better at it. You can if you know like, okay, I'm going to take an IQ test. You can actually study things and improve your IQ if you pay attention.
Like, for example, if you decide to listen to the Shrink Think podcast, your IQ will increase just by listening to this podcast.
Probably not with spatial intelligence.
Probably not.
Right. But so the idea is, with EQ, even if you happen to be a person who is already kind of naturally sharp with your EQ, you can get better. And it requires intentionality. So I was telling Aaron before we started that there are a lot of what we're talking about in the 4 things that Aaron wants to highlight. We've talked about some of these things before. I mean, you can glean them through different episodes. The difference in my mind with this is that we are being intentional with like kind of the how-to, the how you do this intentionally, like from a structured standpoint.
Yeah, so emotional intelligence, as it's defined in this article, made up of 4 key things: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And the way I would describe it is this: it all starts with you and your relationship with yourself, with your emotions. Your ability to see, understand, and handle somebody else's emotions is going to be determined by the effectiveness or the skill that you have with your own emotions. Meaning, if I don't know what I'm feeling, if I don't have the words for it, if I don't know the quality of that emotion, if I don't know what that emotion needs or how to care for it or how to express it, I'm not going to be able to do that very well with other people. I'm not going to be able to recognize when somebody's feeling something, what they're feeling, and then what it needs or how to handle it, which means relationship-wise, I'm going to be mishandling or mismanaging stuff in the relationship between us. So identifying and knowing your own self, another way of saying it is this: when you can deal with your own self and understand where you are, you can define where you end and the other person begins, so that if something's happening in a relationship, you can say, okay, well, I'm feeling this way. These are my feelings, and this is what I need and what I'm doing about it. The rest over there, that's not me. Oh, that's you. I can see where you are, what you need, and be able to speak to what you're feeling and what you're needing in an effective way. And my hope is that if you can do that with yourself effectively, then as I share myself, my emotions and my needs, you can see clearly also for yourself the definition between you and I, and there's a lot of clarity between us.
So I want to go big picture here, like from a totally linking this up with like a metaphor analogy type of thing. So if you were working on a project, like a wood project, at your house, or whatever, anyway, you're working on a project and you have a certain set of tools, whatever those tools are. And you are, let's say, really good with a handsaw. I mean, so when you look at the project that you have, like whatever you want to do, you automatically know, like, oh, I can cut that. I just can cut it like this, and then you kind of visualize it in your mind with what you're going to do. And if somebody comes up to you and says, like, oh, that's really cool, you should do it like this, whatever that difference is. If you're in your mind, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can't cut circles with the handsaw very well. Like, I don't know. But you also don't necessarily know. It's not even occurring to you that there are other tools, right? You don't even know what they are.
And the crazy thing, if you've lived long enough that you've had these experiences, maybe you invite somebody over, you ask somebody, and they're like, oh, I've got a tool for that. They come over, and it like freaking does the job exactly how you want it. And it's this brilliant piece of machinery. You're like, what? Where was this? It's crazy.
I've wasted so much time.
Yeah. What was I doing in my life? But it's this thing that's out there that solves exactly what you're looking for. It's this tool that does the job. And there are so many tools out there like that. You just kind of have to know that they're there.
So there's kind of a development to that, right? So at first you kind of learn like, oh, you can use this tool. Oh, that's a tool. You can use this for this project. Okay, cool. You get good at that, right? And as you get good at that, you start and you learn about more tools. As you grow, you're open to, I wonder if there's some other tools out there, right? So there's an openness to when you look at a project, you're like, oh, one thing I learned before is if I knew about another tool, so let me do some research and see if there's something else, right? That's wisdom. In the beginning though, if you don't know to even ask or look or care, then there's nowhere to go with it. So it's kind of this, it's the exact same thing in what we're talking about is, okay, like Aaron's saying, you have to start to know yourself, right? So you start to understand that you operate a specific way in the world. There's just a way that you encounter the world.
And it's very similar to other human beings in the sense that you have your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own needs that go with your emotions, right? And you communicate those in a certain way or you do something about them. The trick is, so everybody has that, but the trick is you do that in a very unique way that is you. And I do that in a unique way that is me. And so learning yourself or knowing yourself is understanding what those thoughts are, when they happen, what those emotions are, why they're happening. So it's being aware of your internal world, right? And then it's being able to do something about that effectively to manage what's happening for you and being able to see what is the impact when I'm thinking this and feeling this and doing this. What is the impact that's having on the people around me? How is that affecting the behavior, the mood, the attitude, the responses that I'm getting from other people? So instead of looking at a situation and saying, well, you did this, or why did you do that? It's saying, I wonder what I did. I wonder if there's something that I said or that I did prior to what you said or did or what you felt that I may have impacted you in that way. So that is self-awareness. And that's, again, critical because you need to know where you are in the equation and account for that variable in order to leave room to be able to effectively see the variable of the other person or the other people.
And one word that kind of encapsulates how to do that is humility. It's just understanding that you have it's like what we've been saying, you have a unique perspective. It's your perspective and it's a fine perspective, but other people have different ones.
Yeah, and humility along with, I would say, openness and observation. You need to be open to that fact, right? Humble and open to it, but then also just be willing to observe. Observe like what's going on more than what you're used to seeing. And there's this quote that just came out today. Ray Dalio said this on Instagram. It's something like lean into the pain or move toward the pain instead of away from it, because you have a choice there that you can choose between a healthy but painful truth or reality or an unhealthy but comfortable delusion, right?
Love delusions.
A healthy but painful truth or reality or an unhealthy but comfortable delusion. you don't want to be delusional about yourself and about what you're feeling. You need to be honest and open about that. So the more, I guess, open you can be with the truth about what's happening, about what you're saying and the impact you're having on other people, the more objectivity you're going to gain about what's going on. Okay, so that's self-awareness. Self-management is the second part, which is the ability to regulate your emotions, your reactions, and to make adjustments like on the fly or in the moment. If you're the kind of person that you don't really know what's going on, you got to take some time to think and to reflect, well, that's going to be difficult because life is happening or the relationship is happening right now, and you have to like interrupt that process to go like think and reflect and then come back and then make some adjustment and then make a new adjustment, or like gather new information, disconnect, go away, think. If you can do that more readily, like what's happening to me right now, right? And you can manage that, like, oh, you know what, I guess I'm feeling hurt about something. Oh, I need to attend to that hurt in me so that I'm not as reactive to you. And maybe I just tell you, hey, I feel hurt by this thing that you said. That's me adjusting from maybe anger to sadness or to vulnerability on the fly. And that is going to be critical because, A, I'm not only going to diffuse a potentially high conflict or worse conflict situation, but I can also change the course of it by adding some vulnerability and inviting you into probably a hopeful conflict resolution path.
So we are talking about building your EQ. Okay, so some of what Aaron's talking about, you could be going, well, that's just how I am. I'm more introverted, so I need to think and I need my time and I whatever. We're talking about building your EQ. Like, yeah, you do that. Okay. So when you're doing that, you need to be more intentional about understanding and processing what's going on, because whatever you integrate during that time, if you are intentional about it, because if you're not even going to do it. But if you're intentional about it, you can build that speed of a relationship when you're in those relational situations, and it does take time.
Yeah, so for example, I like that example. If you're an introvert, for example, it could be that the impact you're having on other people as an introvert is you're not giving them enough information, enough cues about what's going on for you because you're introverted, you're inside yourself. So you might actually need to share more about what's going on so that the other person can feel more comfortable or know how to navigate. And conversely, for example, if you're an extrovert, you might actually need to share less. You might need to be quiet and do more listening.
Shut up. Don't stop talking to me.
Exactly. That's why I love the book Quiet by Susan Cain. It talks about introverts and extroverts. So that's just an example of like, these are things that you might have a personality, introversion, extroversion, for example, aspect of your personality, but you can modify it in such a way that can be more emotionally intelligent for the service of the health of the relationship.
Which kind of honestly moves us pretty well into social awareness, actually, because it's that idea of kind of being able to, as an observer, you're aware of how, because you can be aware of how you yourself, what's going on in you. We're kind of saying, hey, build that up, pay attention to it. The thing you're going to notice is you're going to be much differently curious with the other people that are around you, because before you might be curious, but we're talking about like, oh, I knew this about myself, right? You learned it, and then you see a look on somebody else's face, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they're learning something like I learned.
Or maybe a way of saying that is when you learn stuff about yourself, it's kind of exciting. You're like, oh, I didn't know I felt that way, or like, oh wow, I didn't realize that that's where that came from, and it's kind of an exciting revelation, and it feels really good to know yourself. And the hope is that you then turn that toward other people. And I love that phrase, Nate, that people will become differently curious. It's like, oh, I wonder what you're experiencing. I'm experiencing something. I wonder what you're experiencing. Now, all of a sudden, you have this openness to hear and to ask questions of the other person to gather more information.
Because you're aware. You're looking around. You're aware of what's going on socially. And that also can help you to edit, right? So you realize like, okay, there is tension here because you've been working on yourself. You're not as uncomfortable with the tension as you might have been in the past, and you're more aware of other people's discomfort with that tension and more compassionate to them, that like, okay, maybe this is just going to be too much, right? You're okay with it. You could keep going, but also from a human to human standpoint, maybe maybe you're just realizing based in your own history that that's probably too much, and so you edit and you slow down.
Yeah, this is great because it kind of, I don't want to rabbit trail too much, but this is a really key thing. We've talked about this before on a few different episodes about like deepening conversations or intimacy in relationships. It's like one of those conversational things that if you can tell that somebody else, you pick up that somebody else might not be okay, you can edit yourself and say, you know what, I was going to talk about something, but man, you seem like you're just not up for it. There's something going on for you. So I can manage myself, right? Move my stuff aside and say, hey, are you okay? Is there something going on? And maybe you start opening up and talking about it. And I realize, yeah, this is really not the time for me to talk about my stuff because you need something, as a friend or as a family member or whatever it is, you need something emotionally that's more important than whatever I have. And I can determine that, which doesn't mean that what I have is not important. It's just timing wise, yours takes more urgency or priority. So I can edit myself and say, okay, tell me about it. What's been going on? Oh, and I can give you the kind of empathy and the compassion that you need socially.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're saying that, like, the bad move with this would be saying, like, I just realized you can't handle something that I was going to say.
Right. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Or also, it's so crazy because this is stuff people actually do. They'll, you're clearly demonstrating that there's something going on for you, but I'm trying to make a point and I'm like, okay, well, that's what I was saying was this. And it's like, bro, can you recognize that the other person was going through something instead of just continuing to try to add your point and like make sure that what you have to say is more important or is heard? Sometimes it's important to pause that and listen to the other person. And that happens all the time. People interrupt or override or all these kind of social things that really say, no, I'm not aware of what you're going through. And I can't be trusted really to meet your emotional needs.
Yeah, and so in closing up social awareness, that's a great example. If you are a person who's kind of been told, like, bro, you are not picking up what everybody's laying down. Like, and this is something for you that's kind of, you've heard it even once or twice in the last 6 months, just assume that that's something that you should be more intentional about working on. Okay, the last one up is relationship management, which comprises a set of social skills, including positive influence, teamwork, clear communication, and conflict management. Woo!
And really, that's kind of an extension of everything we've been talking about here. You can kind of see that it starts with self and it begins to move outward more and more. The greater skills you have with yourself, the more skills you're going to have, and probably also then need to develop with other people. Clear communication, what I always say is clear thinking breeds clear communication. So if you know what you're thinking, if you know why you're thinking it, and you can organize that in your brain, you can be clear about what it is that you're wanting and needing, then you can more precisely communicate that. It's like if you listen to somebody talk, sometimes they can be sort of dancing around something. And I'm not saying like if somebody's trying to figure something out. I mean, if they want something or need something, but they're kind of dancing around it, you don't really know what they're getting at, right? And so it's really difficult relationally to meet their need or to meet them where they're at. But if you can be clear and specific about what it is that you're needing, then you can communicate that to somebody else, and they can decide if they have the ability and the time to be able to meet that need.
So in relationship management, really it's again about intentionality, right? So as you begin to know yourself more, because of those intentions you're doing, you then become more intentional about engaging the relationships that you're in. You do it differently. You intentionally realize like, oh, this is what that person needs, or this is that person's capacity. This is what I need. This is my capacity. And you figure out intentional ways to interact with that with the people that you care about, or the workers that, I mean, not that you're in, you care about maybe your coworkers, but I'm talking about even in professional settings.
Yes, exactly. And lastly, what I'll just say as we close this up, the curiosity that you have for yourself will bleed out into the curiosity toward other people. And all of a sudden, conflict won't be a source of pain anymore. It'll be a source of, disconnection and disagreement or confusion that you'll want to clear up. Instead of avoiding conflict, you'll be like, I wonder what's going on for you. I wonder what's happening. I wonder how you're feeling about this, or I wonder what your experience of this situation was. And you'll move toward the other person in connection and resolution rather than away.
And with that, have a great day. I figured I could add something, but I thought,
That's good.
Don't need to.
Yeah, that was smooth.
Very smooth.
That flowed.
Smooth operator.
She's a smooth operator.
Cake.
Yeah, that was good. I really like that. I feel like that was concise. It covered some good ground. It was practical, and I feel like it could be like in one of those episodes that we refer. How old are you? Would you like to be alone? Do you want me to leave the room?
I was trying to do it without you knowing, and then it would, if you just realized to go back to North.
I figured that.
Yeah, I picked that up. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I know what happens with you and the camera when I'm not around.
Oh boy!
I leave them on sometimes,
right?
And I watch the recording later on. I'm like, "What is this guy?
Why is he
doing
the moonwalk?"
Yeah, right.
Well, he's sitting.
He's watching himself. He's like,
"Oh my word!" We're just building our credibility right now.
Something building or breaking down. One of the two. You can either be doing one of the two.